Hello, everyone. Welcome to English in Advance. My name is Jessica, and I am your host for today. Let's begin with a few questions for you to think about. Do you ever find yourself in a situation where you want to speak to someone in English, but the right words just don't seem to come? Perhaps you've successfully started a conversation, only to have it fizzle out into an uncomfortable silence a minute later. What do you typically talk about when you meet new people? And how do you gracefully keep a conversation moving forward when you feel like you're running out of things to say? If any of these questions resonate with you, please know that you are not alone. These are incredibly common challenges for English learners at all levels. In today's extensive and in-depth podcast episode, we are going to be diving deep into the world of conversational English. This isn't just about grammar rules or memorizing vocabulary lists. It's about the essential, practical skill of connecting with other human beings. It's about building your confidence step by step so that you can feel comfortable and fluent in everyday situations. Whether you're simply chatting with a friend over coffee, introducing yourself to someone new at a party, or engaging in a professional discussion with colleagues, knowing how to confidently navigate the flow of a conversation is absolutely key to your progress and your ability to build meaningful relationships. So get comfortable, perhaps grab a cup of tea, and let's begin this journey together to unlock the art of great conversation in English. Let's start right at the very beginning, which is often the most intimidating part: how to initiate a conversation. That first moment can feel like standing at the edge of a diving board. You know you want to jump in, but the anticipation can be nerve-wracking. The good news is, you only need a few simple, friendly expressions to break the ice. When you meet someone for the very first time, simple greetings like, "Hi, I'm Jessica. It's nice to meet you," can work wonders. They are polite, direct, and set a wonderfully friendly tone. If the situation is a bit more casual, perhaps with someone your age at a cafe, you could try something like, "Hi, how's it going?" Or, "Hey, how are you doing?" These simple phrases are like a friendly wave. They signal that you are open and ready to connect. Once you've made that initial greeting, the next step is to show that you're interested in learning a little more about the other person. This is where small talk comes in, and it's a wonderfully important skill. Small talk is the light, easy conversation that helps people feel comfortable with each other. Think of it as building a small bridge between you and the other person. You can start with some very common and safe questions. For example, asking, "So, where are you from?" is a fantastic starting point because it allows the other person to talk about a place they know well. Another excellent question is, what do you do for work or for your studies? People are generally quite happy to talk about their profession or what they are passionate about learning. These questions aren't just for gathering information. They are signals that you see the other person, that you are curious about their life, and that you want to engage with them. Now, once a conversation has started, the real art is in keeping it flowing naturally and smoothly. One of the most powerful tools you have for this is the follow-up question. This is how you show that you are not just hearing the words someone is saying, but that you are actively listening. Let's imagine a scenario. You ask someone, "Where are you from?" And they reply, "I'm from Italy." Now you have a choice. You could just nod and say, "Oh, nice." And the conversation might end right there. Or you could use a follow-up question to dig a little deeper and show your interest. You could say, "Oh, that's so interesting. I've always wanted to visit Italy. What's your favorite thing about living there? Do you see the difference? That second response opens up a whole new avenue for conversation. They might talk about the food, the history, or their family. Let's try another example. You ask, "What do you do for work?" And the person says, "I'm a graphic designer." Instead of a simple, "Okay," you could ask, "Wow, that sounds creative." What do you enjoy most about your work? Or what kind of projects are you working on these days? These follow-up questions are crucial because they demonstrate that you're paying close attention and they actively encourage the other person to share more about themselves. It transforms the conversation from a simple question and answer session into a genuine exchange of ideas and experiences. Have you ever been in a conversation where you're listening to someone, you've asked a follow-up question, and then suddenly your mind goes blank? You don't know what to say next. Please don't worry. This happens to everyone, even native speakers. It's a completely normal part of communication. One of the most effective and helpful tips to overcome this is to share a little bit of your own experience or opinion that relates to the topic. Sharing makes the conversation a two-way street. For instance, if someone mentions that they enjoy hiking and you've just asked them about their favorite trail, you could then add, "I love hiking too, though I don't get to go as often as I'd like." My favorite trip was to the mountains last year. The air was so fresh and the views were absolutely breathtaking. Have you ever been hiking in the mountains? By sharing your own brief story, you are giving the other person more information to connect with. It makes the conversation more personal, more engaging, and less like an interview. It creates a bond. Another truly important part of conversational English is learning how to react naturally to what someone is saying. Your reactions show your emotional engagement in the conversation. Think about it. A conversation without reactions would feel very flat and robotic. When someone tells you something exciting like, "I just got a promotion at work," you can respond with genuine enthusiasm. You could say, "Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations." Or, "That sounds great. You must be so proud." These phrases, delivered with a smile and an energetic tone, show that you share in their happiness. On the other hand, if they share a problem or some difficult news, such as, "I've been feeling really stressed out lately," your reaction should show empathy. You could say, "I'm so sorry to hear that," or "That must be really tough. Is there anything I can do?" These empathetic reactions show that you care, and they help to build a strong connection and a sense of trust between you and the person you're speaking with. Of course, all conversations must eventually come to an end, and knowing how to end one politely is just as important as knowing how to start one. You don't want to just turn around and walk away. A graceful exit leaves a positive and lasting impression. When you feel the conversation is naturally winding down, or if you need to leave, you can use some simple closing phrases. You might say, "Well, it was really great talking to you," or "I really enjoyed our chat. I hope we can do it again sometime." If you genuinely want to continue the connection, you could add, "Let's talk again soon." These phrases are like a polite handshake at the end of the interaction. They show that you valued the time you spent together and leave the door open for future conversations. It's also vital to remember that learning conversational English isn't just about memorizing the right words and phrases. So much of our communication is nonverbal. It's about understanding tone and body language. For example, a simple act like smiling can instantly make you seem more approachable, friendly, and open. Making eye contact when someone is speaking to you shows that you are engaged and giving them your full attention. Your tone of voice can also completely change the meaning of your words. Think about the phrase, "That's nice." If you say it with enthusiasm and a rising intonation, "That's nice," it sounds positive and sincere. But if you say it in a flat, monotone voice, "That's nice," it might sound like you're bored or uninterested. Becoming aware of these nonverbal cues in your own communication and in others will dramatically improve your conversational skills. Have you ever tried practicing conversations with a friend or a language partner? This can be an incredibly effective and fun way to build confidence. Role-playing common situations like ordering food in a restaurant, asking for directions on the street, or checking into a hotel can help you feel much more prepared for real-life interactions. The more you practice the language in a safe and supportive environment, the more natural and spontaneous your conversations will feel when you're out in the real world. And please, always remember this. It is absolutely okay to make mistakes. No one, truly no one, expects you to be perfect, especially when you are learning and speaking a language that is not your first. The most important thing is that you keep trying, that you focus on communicating your ideas and connecting with the other person. Over time, I promise you, you will find that conversations become easier, more enjoyable, and one of the most rewarding parts of your English learning journey. Now, let's talk about actively building your vocabulary specifically for conversational English. While learning new words is always good, for conversation, it's often more effective to learn entire phrases. Think of these phrases as tools in your conversational toolkit. Learning expressions like, "That's a good question," can give you a moment to think before you answer. Phrases like, "I see what you mean," show agreement and understanding. And a very useful one is, "Could you explain that a bit more?" which shows you're engaged and want to understand fully. Using these phrases can make your conversations feel much smoother and more interactive. They act as the glue that holds the conversation together, showing that you are actively participating and interested in what the other person has to say. How do you feel about conversations that switch topics? This is something that happens naturally in any language. You might start by talking about your hobbies, and then that might lead to a conversation about travel, which might then remind you of a particular food you tried on a trip. Being able to transition smoothly between topics is another great skill to develop. You don't have to just abruptly change the subject. You can use transition phrases to make it feel natural. For example, you could say, "Speaking of travel, have you ever been to a tropical island?" Or, "That reminds me of something interesting I read recently." These transitions help to keep the conversation dynamic, fresh, and engaging. By practicing all of these skills, starting conversations, asking follow-up questions, sharing your own experiences, listening actively, and using transition phrases, you will become so much more confident in your ability to hold meaningful conversations in English. Remember, it's not just about the words you use. It's about listening, responding, and truly connecting with the person you're speaking to. Let's dive even deeper into how we can improve our conversational English, because a major part of having smooth, enjoyable conversations is learning how to stay relaxed. Sometimes, when we're speaking in a second language, it's very easy to get nervous or to worry constantly about making a mistake. But I want you to remember that every single conversation is a chance to learn, and to improve. So when you're practicing, try to take a deep breath, stay calm, and focus on simply expressing your ideas as clearly as you can. It's perfectly fine if you need to pause for a moment to think about what you want to say. In fact, a thoughtful pause can often make you sound more considered and intelligent. A wonderful way to help yourself stay relaxed is by listening very carefully to what the other person is saying. This is a skill we call active listening, and it is absolutely essential in any meaningful conversation. Active listening means you're not just hearing the words that are coming out of someone's mouth. You're really trying to understand the meaning, the emotion, and the intention behind them. For example, if your friend Liam says, "I've been really busy with work lately," instead of just nodding or saying, "Oh," you might respond with something that shows you've understood the feeling behind his words. You could say, "That sounds tough, Liam. How do you manage to find any time for yourself with such a busy schedule?" This kind of response shows you're paying attention on a deeper level, and it makes the other person feel heard and valued. When it comes to keeping the conversation moving, it's also incredibly helpful to give a little bit of feedback on what the person has shared. This doesn't mean you have to repeat everything they've said, but adding a comment or a related thought can be very effective. For instance, if your colleague Chloe mentions that she recently went hiking over the weekend, you could say, "Hiking sounds so fun. I went last summer and it was just amazing to be surrounded by nature and away from the city. Where did you go hiking?" This does two things. It validates her experience by agreeing that hiking is fun, and it shares a small piece of your own experience, making the conversation more interactive. Then you skillfully pass the conversational ball back to her by asking a specific follow-up question. Another thing to keep in mind is the immense importance of asking open-ended questions. These types of questions are conversational gold. They are questions that invite more than a simple yes or no answer, and they encourage the other person to share more details, thoughts, and feelings. So instead of asking a closed-ended question like, "Do you like sports?" which can be answered with a simple yes or no, try asking an open-ended question like, "What kind of sports do you enjoy, and what do you like about them?" Can you see how that second question opens up the conversation so much more? It allows the person to talk about their interests in detail, and it gives you much more material to continue the conversation. Open-ended questions are the key to making a conversation richer, deeper, and more enjoyable for both people. Sometimes in conversations, you'll need to give your opinion, and that's another wonderful area where you can practice your English. Sharing your thoughts and perspectives is a great way to keep a conversation dynamic, but it's important to do it politely and respectfully. You can use phrases that soften your opinion, making it sound less like a strong command and more like a personal viewpoint. For example, you might say, "In my opinion, I think that's a great idea, but I personally prefer something a little different," or, "From my perspective, it's better to..." These phrases allow you to share your views without sounding too direct or confrontational. They help to create a more balanced, friendly, and respectful atmosphere in the conversation, where both people feel comfortable sharing their honest thoughts. Another aspect of mastering conversational English is understanding the natural flow of a conversation. Real conversations are rarely linear. They can go in many different directions, and that's perfectly fine and normal. One moment you might be talking about movies, and the next you're discussing food or family plans. The ability to transition smoothly between these topics is an important skill. You can use bridge phrases to help you move from one topic to another. You might say, "That reminds me of something else I wanted to ask you about." Or, "Speaking of that, I've been wondering." These transitions help to keep the conversation feeling lively and can prevent those awkward silences where no one is sure what to say next. At times, you will almost certainly not understand everything that's being said, and I want to emphasize again that this is completely okay. Please do not be afraid to ask for clarification. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of a good communicator. You can politely say, "I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?" Or, "I didn't quite catch that last part. Could you explain it again?" Asking for clarification is a fantastic way to show that you are engaged and that you genuinely want to understand what the other person is saying. Most people will appreciate this because it shows you care about the conversation and about their perspective. It's also very important, especially when you are building your skills, to keep your own sentences clear and not overly complicated. This is especially helpful for learners. Instead of trying to use long, complex sentences that you might read in a book, try to express your thoughts in a simpler, more direct way. For example, instead of saying a very long sentence like, "I would really appreciate it if you could share more detailed information about your recent vacation to Italy, as I'm very interested in that region and would love to visit it myself someday," you can break it down and say it more naturally. You could say, "I'd love to hear more about your trip to Italy. What was your favorite part?" This way, you keep the conversation easy to follow, natural, and much less stressful for you to produce. Small talk is a key component of conversational English. It's the light, casual conversation that doesn't dive into very deep or serious topics. But it's perfect for meeting new people or for warming up before a bigger discussion. For instance, when you meet someone new, asking about their day or their plans for the weekend is a great way to start. You could ask, "What did you get up to this weekend?" Or, "How's your day going so far?" These simple questions help to break the ice and allow the other person to talk about themselves, which is something most people enjoy doing. Building confidence in your speaking skills also means truly accepting that you will make mistakes. In fact, making mistakes is a fundamental part of the learning process, and it's something we all experience, even in our native languages. If you don't know a particular word or phrase, don't panic. Don't be afraid to ask for help or to use simpler language to describe what you mean. For example, if you forget the word for corkscrew, you could say, "I don't know the word for that, but it's the thing you use to open a bottle of wine." Most people will immediately understand and appreciate your effort, and they'll likely be happy to help you with the word. One of the best tips I can give you is to practice conversations every single day, even if it's just for a few minutes. You can practice with a friend, a language partner, or even by yourself. Try talking to yourself in the mirror or narrating what you're doing as you cook dinner. You can also use language exchange apps where you can connect with native speakers who want to learn your language. The more you practice speaking, the more confident and fluent you will become. And remember, conversations don't have to be perfect. The more relaxed and natural you are, the easier it will be to keep the conversation going. When you're just starting, focus on the basics: greetings, introductions, and simple questions. As you get more comfortable, you can gradually expand your vocabulary and start talking about more complex topics. like your hobbies, your future plans, and your opinions on different subjects. Over time, you will be able to express yourself with more ease and confidence than you ever thought possible. Now let's think about how to be a good listener as well as a good speaker. In any conversation, it is just as important to listen carefully as it is to speak clearly. When the other person is talking, make sure you are truly paying attention and not just thinking about what you are going to say next. You can show you're actively listening by nodding, maintaining eye contact, and giving small verbal cues like, I see, or that's interesting. Active listening is absolutely crucial for building genuine connections with others and for making your conversations more meaningful and memorable. Let's dive even deeper into improving our conversational English skills. At its very core, having a good conversation is all about connection. It's about the beautiful exchange of ideas, the sharing of experiences, and the opportunity to learn from one another. To achieve this wonderful connection, we need to develop both confidence in our abilities and competence in using the language. Let's explore some more advanced strategies to elevate your conversational abilities. Whether you're just starting out on this journey or looking to refine your skills even further. A crucial element in building conversational fluency is expanding your vocabulary. The broader your vocabulary, the easier it will be to express your thoughts with precision and color. But here's the key. Focus on learning words and phrases that are practical and relevant to your daily life. For example, if you often find yourself talking about your hobbies, make an effort to learn vocabulary related to your favorite activities. Instead of just memorizing long lists of random words from a dictionary, try to learn phrases that you can immediately put into use in conversations. For instance, instead of just knowing the word travel, learn useful phrases like, I'd love to travel to, or what's the best place you've ever traveled to? This way, your learning becomes purposeful and directly applicable to your life. Another highly effective method is to learn common idioms and expressions. These are the phrases that native speakers use all the time, and understanding them can make your conversation sound much more natural and fluent. For example, instead of saying, I'm very tired, you could say, I'm completely worn out. Or instead of just saying, I agree with you, you might say, we're on the same page. These small changes can make your speech sound more sophisticated and engaging. Start by learning a few at a time and trying to use them in your practice conversations. Pronunciation is another key area to focus on. When we communicate, it's not just about what we say, but also about how we say it. Practicing clear pronunciation will make your conversations smoother and more effective, reducing the chance of misunderstandings. To improve, listen very closely to how native speakers pronounce words. Pay attention to their rhythm, their intonation, the rise and fall of their voice, and how they stress certain syllables in a word. Then, try to mimic them. You can use online tools or apps to listen to native speakers and repeat after them. Even watching movies or TV shows in English and pausing to repeat lines of dialogue can be a fun and incredibly effective way to practice your pronunciation. Now, let's talk more about maintaining a conversation. One of the best ways to keep the dialogue flowing is by using those wonderful follow-up questions we discussed earlier. Let's really break this down. Suppose someone tells you, I just got back from a trip to Spain. Instead of responding with a simple, that's nice, which can be a conversation killer, you could ask a series of open-ended follow-up questions. Wow, Spain, that sounds incredible. What was your favorite part of the trip? After they answer, you can continue. And what cities did you visit? I've heard Barcelona is amazing. These kinds of follow-up questions show that you are genuinely interested, and they give the other person a wonderful opportunity to share more about their experience. It also takes the pressure off of you because they will be doing more of the talking, giving you time to listen and think of your next response. Another way to keep a conversation alive and balanced is by sharing a little bit about yourself. For example, if someone mentions that they enjoy playing soccer, you might respond with, "That's great. I've always wanted to try soccer. I usually play basketball, but soccer looks so exciting and requires so much skill. How often do you play?" By sharing something about yourself, in this case, that you play basketball, you make the conversation more interactive and create a sense of mutual exchange. It's not just an interview, it's a shared experience. Now let's address a very common challenge. What do you do when you are completely unsure about what to say next? This can happen to anyone at any time, especially when speaking a second language. The key is to stay calm and use some simple strategies to buy yourself a little bit of time. You could use a filler phrase like, "That's an interesting point. Let me think about that for a moment." Or you can rephrase what the other person said, which gives you a moment to collect your thoughts. For example, if someone says, "I find history fascinating," you could respond with, "So you're saying history is a real passion for you? That's great. What period of history do you enjoy studying the most?" This technique of paraphrasing shows you're listening and gives your brain a few extra seconds to come up with a question or a comment. To truly excel in conversational English, you need to practice regularly. But here's a tip. Don't just practice in a structured way, like in a classroom. Try to engage in real-life conversations whenever you have the opportunity. Whether it's chatting with a colleague during a coffee break, joining a group discussion online, or even talking to yourself while you're cooking dinner, every single bit of practice helps. If you don't have someone to practice with in person, consider joining online language exchange communities. These platforms are full of people from all over the world who are also looking to improve their language skills, and they offer a very supportive and low-pressure environment for practice. Let's also talk about body language. Did you know that a huge percentage of communication is nonverbal? The things you do with your body can sometimes speak louder than your words. Nonverbal cues like your gestures, your facial expressions, and your posture play a massive role in how your message is received. For example, maintaining good eye contact shows that you are engaged and confident. A genuine smile can make you appear much more friendly and approachable. Even the way you nod your head can indicate that you are listening and agreeing with what is being said. When it comes to your tone, think about how your voice conveys your emotions. A monotone voice can make you sound uninterested, while a varied and energetic tone shows enthusiasm and passion. Practice speaking with energy and emotion, especially when you're talking about topics you're passionate about. This makes your conversation much more lively and enjoyable for both you and the person you're speaking with. Mistakes are absolutely inevitable when you're learning a new language, and that is more than okay. Instead of feeling embarrassed or discouraged by your mistakes, I want you to try to view them as valuable opportunities to learn. For instance, if someone corrects your grammar, don't be discouraged. Thank them for helping you improve. Remember, the goal of conversation is communication and connection, not perfection. Every mistake you make is bringing you one step closer to fluency. Lastly, let's consider the cultural aspect of conversational English. Language is not just about words and grammar, it's also about understanding the culture behind the language. For example, in some cultures, it's common to be very direct, while in others, people tend to be more indirect to avoid causing offense. Learning about these cultural nuances can help you navigate conversations more effectively. For instance, understanding that Americans often say, "How's it going?" as a casual greeting, even when they don't expect a detailed response, can save you from confusion. In summary, improving your conversational English is a rich and rewarding journey that involves building your vocabulary, practicing your pronunciation, mastering the art of small talk, and understanding cultural nuances. With consistent effort and a positive, patient attitude, you will find yourself becoming more confident and fluent in no time at all. I hope you're enjoying this deep dive into conversational English. We've covered the basics, but to really reach a high level of fluency, you'll need to step up your game. Let's explore some more advanced techniques. One of the most effective ways to do this is by practicing true active listening. As we've touched on, active listening means truly focusing on what the other person is saying without planning your response while they're still talking. It's about understanding the speaker's words, their emotions, and their underlying intentions. This is a skill that goes far beyond just hearing the words. It involves thinking critically and responding thoughtfully. When you listen actively, you're able to ask better, more insightful questions, provide more relevant answers, and connect with the speaker on a much deeper level. Active listening is essential for any great conversation because it shows respect and genuine interest in the other person's point of view. To practice active listening, try repeating back what the speaker has said, but in your own words. This is called paraphrasing, and it helps to confirm that you have understood them correctly. For example, if your friend says, "I've been feeling so tired lately because of my new job. The hours are really long," you could respond with, "It sounds like your new job is really demanding. I can see why you'd feel exhausted with such a tough schedule." This shows that you've been paying close attention and makes the conversation feel more engaging and supportive. Another way to improve your conversational skills is by focusing on your fluency. Fluency refers to your ability to speak smoothly and naturally, without too much hesitation, even when you don't know the exact word for something. To practice fluency, try speaking about a specific topic for a set period of time, like 2 minutes or 5 minutes, without stopping. You can start with simple topics such as, "What did you do last weekend?" or "What's your favorite food?" This exercise forces you to think on your feet, and it's perfectly okay if you make grammar mistakes along the way. The goal of this exercise is to build your ability to communicate your ideas, not to be perfect. The more you practice this, the more comfortable you'll become with expressing yourself quickly and clearly in a real conversation. One of the biggest hurdles for many language learners is dealing with nerves or anxiety when speaking English. It's completely normal to feel a little anxious when speaking a second language, but please don't let that fear hold you back. One way to build confidence is by practicing in a safe and supportive environment. You can start by speaking with close friends or family members who won't judge you. As you get more comfortable, you can then try to engage in conversations with new people or even find online language exchange partners. Remember, making mistakes is a natural and necessary part of the learning process. Every single time you speak, you are getting better, and with each conversation, your confidence will grow. It's also very important to learn how to manage conversations effectively. For example, if you feel like a conversation is running out of steam or getting a bit slow, you can introduce a new topic or ask a specific follow-up question. Here's an example. If you're talking about movies and the conversation starts to slow down, you could ask, "What's the last movie you saw in the theater?" Or do you have a favorite actor or actress whose work you always follow? These questions help you to keep the conversation flowing smoothly. And they also show that you're genuinely interested in learning more about the other person's experiences and preferences. Another critical aspect of improving your conversational English is developing your ability to use transitions effectively. Transitions are the words or phrases that help to connect your ideas smoothly, making your conversations more coherent and easier for others to follow. For example, when you want to add more information to a point you're making, you can use phrases like, "In addition to that," "furthermore," or "not only that, but." When you want to present a contrasting idea, you might say, "however," "on the other hand," or "that being said." These transitions act as bridges between your sentences, helping to guide your listener through your thoughts seamlessly. Practicing these phrases in context can make your speech sound much more polished and professional. Additionally, understanding and practicing idiomatic expressions can greatly enhance your ability to engage in natural, flowing conversations. Idioms are those tricky but fun phrases where the meaning isn't immediately clear from the individual words. Take the idiom, "break the ice," which means to start a conversation in a relaxed and friendly way, or "hit the nail on the head," which means to describe something perfectly. Using idioms correctly can make your English sound much more fluent and native-like. Start by learning a few common idioms and practicing them in sentences. For instance, if someone asks how your weekend was, you might say, "It was a blast. I got to spend some quality time with my friends." This not only shows your understanding of casual expressions, but also makes the conversation more lively and relatable. Learning how to respond appropriately to different tones and situations is another essential skill. Conversations can be formal, like in a business meeting, or very informal, like when you're chatting with friends. Being able to adapt your language and tone accordingly is crucial for effective communication. For formal situations, use polite language and avoid slang. For example, instead of saying, "What's up?" you might say, "How are you doing today?" On the other hand, in informal settings, it's perfectly fine to use more casual language. By practicing in both formal and informal contexts, you can develop the flexibility to navigate any conversational situation with ease and confidence. Building a strong vocabulary is, of course, equally important. To express yourself clearly and precisely, you need to have a wide range of words at your disposal. One of the most effective ways to expand your vocabulary is by learning words in context rather than in isolation. For example, instead of just memorizing the word excited, learn it in phrases like, "I'm so excited about my new job," or "she was excited to meet her favorite author." This helps you understand how the word is used in real-life situations. Additionally, try to learn synonyms and related words. For instance, along with excited, you could learn thrilled, overjoyed, and ecstatic. This will allow you to express yourself more vividly and precisely. Pronunciation is another critical area to focus on. Even if your vocabulary and grammar are excellent, unclear pronunciation can make it difficult for others to understand you. To improve your pronunciation, try practicing with tongue twisters, as they help to train your mouth and tongue to produce sounds more accurately. For instance, "She sells seashells by the seashore" can help you practice the S and sh sounds. Additionally, listen to native speakers and mimic their pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. You can even record yourself speaking and compare it to native speakers to identify areas for improvement. With consistent practice, you'll notice a significant improvement in your clarity and confidence. Another valuable strategy is to learn how to use questions effectively in conversations. Asking good questions shows that you're interested in the other person and helps to keep the dialogue going. There are different types of questions you can use. Open-ended questions, like, "What do you think about the new park in our neighborhood?" Encourage the other person to share their thoughts in detail. Closed-ended questions like, "Do you like coffee?" are useful when you want a simple yes or no answer. Balancing these two types of questions can help you steer the conversation in a natural and engaging way. Understanding body language and nonverbal cues is also essential for successful communication. Sometimes, what you don't say speaks louder than your words. For example, maintaining eye contact shows that you're paying attention, while nodding occasionally indicates agreement or understanding. A smile can help create a positive atmosphere, making the other person feel more comfortable. On the other hand, crossing your arms or avoiding eye contact might give the impression that you're not interested or you're closed off. Practice being aware of your own body language and observing others to better understand the unspoken elements of communication. Another way to improve is by practicing storytelling. People love hearing stories, and being able to share your own experiences in an engaging way is a fantastic skill. When you're telling a story, remember to include details that bring it to life for the listener. For example, instead of saying, "I went to a park and it was nice," you could say, "Last weekend I visited this beautiful park with tall green trees and a sparkling lake. I spent hours just walking along the trails, listening to the birds, and enjoying the fresh air." Adding vivid descriptions and emotions makes your story much more interesting and helps the listener feel connected to your experience. If you want to take your conversational skills to the next level, consider joining a language exchange group or finding a speaking partner online. These platforms give you the chance to practice with people from different backgrounds, exposing you to various accents and conversational styles. Additionally, you'll learn about different cultures, which can make your conversations more meaningful and insightful. When you're practicing with a partner, try to focus on having natural, flowing conversations rather than just practicing set phrases. This will prepare you for real-life situations where conversations don't always follow a predictable script. Lastly, it's so important to reflect on your progress and identify areas for improvement. After each conversation, ask yourself questions like, "Did I understand the other person clearly? Was I able to express my thoughts effectively? And what could I do better next time?" Taking the time to reflect will help you pinpoint your strengths and weaknesses, allowing you to focus your practice on the areas that need more attention. Remember that the journey to fluency is a marathon, not a sprint. Celebrate your successes, no matter how small they may seem, and keep pushing yourself to reach new heights. Thank you so much for joining me, Jessica, on English in Advance today. We've covered so much ground, from the simple act of starting a conversation to the finer points of storytelling and active listening. I hope you feel inspired and equipped with new tools to enhance your conversational English. Remember, every conversation is an opportunity to practice, to learn, and to connect. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. They are simply stepping stones on your path to fluency. My challenge for you this week is to try just one new technique we discussed today. Perhaps you can focus on asking more open-ended questions, or maybe you can try sharing a short personal story in your next English conversation. The most important thing is to keep practicing and to have fun with it. Please subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the English language. Until next time, happy learning!